Hello and welcome to the Bike Show. Later on in this episode, this fella will be giving you a very useful riding tip indeed. We've got the usual bits and pieces of news and industry updates, but first we have a test of what is quite possibly the most important, hotly anticipated new model of the year. It's this, and it's ridden by the least anticipated model of the year.
It is amazing how a company as young and relatively small as Triumph can innovate and set trends that all others follow. 3 examples spring to mind: the retro bike, the factory cafe racer, and the scrambler. All of these copied the original bikes from the 50s and 60s and brought them back to market for a new generation of riders. Not only that, but they started a trend, the retro style bike that has been followed by everyone else. The thing about the people at Triumph, however, is that even though they've delved into the past for inspiration on numerous occasions, they're also not afraid to bring the past bang up to date either. When I tested the Triumph Thruxton R, 2-3 years ago, I said that the original Thruxton was more style over substance, but when they reinvented the model, they added an awful lot of substance to go with the style. Well, now the people at Triumph have done it again, and this time it's the Scrambler that gets the full treatment. But hang on, what is a Scrambler, that modern trend that is all the rage at the moment? Well, back in the mists of time, there were no speciality off-road bikes, what we would call plastic bikes today. Manufacturers took existing production models, and in Triumph's case this was the Speed Twin or the Thunderbird, and create off-road models such as the Trophy. When races around closed-circuit off-road courses came to be organised, some wag declared that it would be a right old scramble, and thus the Scrambler name was born. With the advent of the speciality enduro or motocross bike, the name went out of use.
What we have here is a completely new model that owes nothing to the previous model. Triumph has done it again and created a thoroughly modern retro bike, which sounds contradictory, but it's true.
Another way of putting it is that they have realised that looking good is not enough to stay ahead of the game. What none of us expected was that the outcome of their realisation would be this good.
So what do we have here? Well, for the first time, this is a Scrambler that's not just a Scrambler in name alone. This is no surface glitter bike. This is the real deal. It's a proper Scrambler.
The frame is unique to the Scrambler, but the engine is as found in the Thruxton, which in itself is the high-power version of the 1200cc Bonneville motor, reworked for a bit more low-down grunt. There are 2 models, the XC and the XE, although South Africa will only get the XE, which is fine as that is the full-fat, all-singing, all-dancing model. Over the XC, it has beefier, longer travel suspension, longer wheelbase, wider handlebars, more electronics, and a 21-inch front wheel. All these features are designed to make it as good as possible off-road.
But does that mean that Triumph has given it off-road ability at the expense of on-road fun? Not a bit of it.
88.8 brake horsepower and 110 newton meters of torque, pushing along 220 kilograms, are not figures that will set the world on fire, but what a wonderful piece of engineering this is, with lots of grunt and a lovely soundtrack. More importantly, these are figures that translate into a performance that, while it might not be the fastest, is chock full of ear-to-ear, grin-inducing fun. There is power everywhere you need it, and the gearbox, although devoid of a quick shifter or auto blipper, is as sweet and smooth as anything else out there.
Don't think that the off-road oriented suspension is a compromise to give it on-road ability. The Showa forks at the front and the Öhlins shocks at the back. I've never ridden a bike with suspension that is so perfect for it. It's creamy smooth, it's firm but never jarring, it's long travel but it's never wallowy.
Oh, and as an aside, the suspension has 30 millimeters more travel than a KTM 1290 Super Adventure R, which must mean something. Everything feels so well engineered. The ride-by-wire throttle is light and smooth, as is the clutch, both of which will undoubtedly help when we get this thing onto the dirt. What the XE also gives you is a gyro-controlled ABS and traction control system, meaning that it's lean sensitive. Braking is handled by Brembo M50 monoblock calipers, and these were the preserve of superbikes not that long ago, and now here we have them on a retro scrambler. The beauty is in the detail as well. Side-laced wheels to take tubeless Metzler Tourance tyres, 6 riding modes, LED lights, illuminated switchgear, keyless ignition, cruise control, heated grips, and a USB charger. Even the light-sensitive colour dash is a work of art. There's not one jarring note anywhere on this bike. Yes, it's extremely stylish, but it also looks really purposeful as well. And you know that it's got the ability to back up that look of being purposeful. Yes, you could pose at the pub or the cafe on this thing, but deep down you know that you're absolutely wasting all this bike's abilities. But now I hear you saying, well, you're telling me how good this is off-road, so why not show us? Well, funny you should mention that. Well, yes, that really wasn't me doing the riding, but the man who was making me look so good was Dieter Engelbrecht from ADA out here near Hartebierspot. Dieter, you've ridden all the adventure bikes. This is fantastically stylish, but can it hold its head up high in adventure company?
Harry, when you first arrived here with the whole Triumph bike and that, and I've been driving a lot of adventure bikes, I was wondering, I know Triumphs, but really holding up its head high, and first couple of minutes, the first jump I hit, I was like, whoa, this suspension it's on a different level.
Really?
They've really raised the bar. The way that suspension handles it is just incredible, and it gives you such confidence. And then the power delivery is smooth. I can use all of it. There's never a massive grunt in my face. It's all usable. It's incredible. Really, really good.
Throttle response, not jerky at all?
Nothing at all. I'm really, really, really surprised by how this bike handles.
You were riding it now in Off-Road Pro, which turns all the rider aids off.
Yes.
And still perfectly manageable?
Still perfectly manageable. Never at one stage did the front wheel lock up and slide out underneath me. It's all usable. The way that delivers it, it's just incredible.
And weight, look, I mean, you might think that for a naked bike like this, 220 kilograms wet is quite a lot, but do you feel it?
I thought we were sitting at 150, 140 when I drive. I didn't even know it was 220. So no, you don't feel it at all. I didn't know it was that weight.
Flipping out. Well, I don't think you can get a better recommendation than that. The new Triumph Scrambler. What a bike.
So let me get this right. 2006, Triumph brought out the first Scrambler.
Yes.
Which South Africans couldn't get their head around, because for us a Scrambler is a motocross bike, but
It wasn't really.
Yeah, to the rest of the world it's a styling exercise.
Yes.
And just now, finally, 2019, we finally got our heads around the fact that it's just styling, and then Triumph do this.
So Scrambler is now a
It's now
Scrambler.
a Scrambler again.
What Triumph have done here is they've given us a fantastically capable adventure bike with Steve McQueen levels of utter cool. How about
Yes.
He's on a roll,
He's
isn't
on
he?
a roll. Go on, carry
Keep
on,
talking,
carry on.
yeah, I mean, it's mesmerising,
I'm
mate.
impressed.
that? So let me try this with you. So, for the first time, here we have a retro-styled bike, which, thanks to its fantastic electronics and really top-notch components, goes as well as it looks. And more importantly, it'll go as well in the places where it looks it should go.
Okay, he's lost me now.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
It,
that's
it
sort of...
looks like it should be good off-road, and it is.
I know there's going to be a bunch of guys that instead of buying big, huge plastic things, are going to go for that instead.
So, I mean, in the Triumph range, you can have a triple-cylinder engined adventure bike, or
Yes.
the twin and the scrambler. And
Exactly.
twins tend to be more widely accepted as perfect for doing the off-roading bit. The details are absolutely gorgeous.
The detail and the quality of the detail is absolutely staggering. The only bits of plastic on this bike are the side panels. Everything else is
Really?
aluminium. The mudguards are aluminium. Look at these handguards. That's thick, solid aluminium. You never
See
get
it even in the mirrors.
even in the mirrors.
So even all these plates as well, they're also in aluminium.
The detail everywhere. The Monza filler cap, the tank strap. The way they've mounted the rear light, it's
beautiful.
completely out of the way.
Yes,
And if you
no
want to,
wiring to be seen.
No, and you can get rid of that whole number plate and indicators thing and just leave it very stumpy tailed. Everywhere, it's just perfect.
You know what? Okay, we always said the Germans are all kind of about quality and all this sort of thing. But I mean, every time Triumph bring out a new bike, it's sort of you kind of go, well, BMW's all right.
Yeah, no,
You know,
100%.
it is.
They've nailed the quality thing.
Every other adventure bike, there's a lot of plastic in there, which might be
Yeah.
good for replacing if you do drop it. But this, even the bash plate, which on a lot of bikes is original equipment, is just a bit of plastic. This is Ali. Everything
So it's
is
all
aluminium.
super retro, but I love the clocks on it with the.
Yes.
How the. I mean, the Triumph have been nailing instrument dash for the last 10, 15
hang on.
years.
I'm convinced that whenever the Triumph designers design a new dash, they try a new drug. Because you look.
Well, drugs work, obviously. This is probably the message we don't want to get across.
hang on, no. Hang on, this is not necessarily a bad thing. Don't do drugs, except if you're a Triumph dash designer, in which case, carry on.
Okay, look, we've covered quality, and obviously all of us raving about the bike. It is
Yes.
brilliant.
Yes.
Before I get to pricing, anything you don't like about it?
There's nothing I don't like, but there's, I think, a couple of issues. Okay, the exhaust, for a start. It looks wonderful, it sounds fantastic, but I suspect that it's going to kick out an awful lot of heat. Right.
You don't need to suspect.
Right.
It does.
It does, yes.
Yes.
And even when you're standing on the bike, your leg gets even closer to the exhaust, even though it's all shrouded and these sort of covers
Yeah.
on it. There is going to be an awful lot of heat, especially in the South African
Plastic
heat.
surgeons are going to be doing a lot of inside thighs, right thighs, for the foreseeable future.
Another issue, it's an adventure bike. It's only got a 15.8 litre tank. Now that's in line with the BMW Scrambler, the R90 Scrambler, and the Ducati
Yeah, but they're not
Scrambler
scramblers,
business.
remember? We've had this discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, but okay, but at the same time, you're not going to want to do too far a distance
well,
on this thing.
that brings me to the other slight issue is there's absolutely no wind protection whatsoever. You can get a little fly stream.
It's a scrambler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
you're
it's,
too
yeah, but it's an
sensible.
adventure
Okay.
bike.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
is it-
yeah,
no,
yeah.
but
You know what?
it's just-
I'll say yes and no. Long distance touring, no. But did you find when you were
You
riding
could, but
actual
people don't
off-road-
tour like us. They don't do 180 k's an hour. You can tour 120. It's 140. It's ample for that.
It is. This is true.
Hang on. But when you're riding off-road without bits of plastic everywhere, isn't it better?
Yes. Right. Okay. Look, the only thing that can stop this from being an absolute outright winner in every respect is the fact that it costs 487,000 rand.
It doesn't.
It's expensive though. Has to be.
Look, there's two versions, but the XC and the XE. We only get the XE,
Which is the more off-road.
which is the more off-road in South Africa, and it is 205,000 rand
That is good.
with all
Hang on.
that
No.
equipment.
The Triumph 800
is
is 199. So for
The
6
triple.
grand more, you
get
can
this.
have a 1200.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot more than 6 grand more of cool.
Yeah.
in
No,
this.
there is.
Actually, when you let that
yeah.
sink in, that's a bit of a bargain, isn't it?
Well, okay, it's sort of in line with the Ducati 1200 Scrambler,
Which isn't a
can't
scrambler.
go off-road, you know what I mean?
Yes. And I mean, that's for the BMW R90 Scrambler,
Which isn't a
Yeah.
scrambler.
which
Yes.
isn't a Scrambler. Yeah.
So if you want a scrambler that is actually a scrambler, then you need this particular scrambler. I
The
think
Triumph Scrambler.
we've scrambled our viewers enough. Let's go for an ad break because my head hurts.